Televape seems like a bad idea. It's a collaborative project between Telepath and VAPERROR, who are both well-respected artists in the Vaporwave genre. They've each got a few classics under their belt, but they are the two artists I would least expect to ever work together on an album. I think the best way to express this is just by playing you some of their music. Hopefully I don't get killed by copyright over this. So, Telepath deals in calmer, more ambient vaporwave, where VAPERROR does more vapor trap and juke. They're not really two styles that you'd expect to work well together. Granted, not everything these guys make are in these exact styles. For example, VAPERROR has an ambient project called Useless, and Telepath's really early stuff is a lot busier and in the more traditional style. But those aren't really what either are known for, and they weren't really relevant to their careers when the two Televape albums came out. Anyways, it's impressive how the two Televape albums both managed to strike a perfect balance between the two artists' styles. They don't sound like anything Telepath or VAPERROR would have made on their own, but they have both of their styles within it. These albums don't have any samples either. VAPERROR effectively made full songs, and then Telepath added his instantly identifiable production techniques to them. The songs VAPERROR provided were a bit mellower than the ones I showed earlier, but they're still in a fairly different style than the samples used on Telepath's normal albums. Their first album was called Beyond Love. I'm not going to try and pronounce his untranslated name, but hopefully I'll remember to put it on the screen. I think this is the weaker of the two albums, but I will admit that its cover art is incredible. I think it's worth pointing out how even the cover art is a merging of the two artists' styles. These two covers are still in the same general style as many of Telepath's covers, that being a hazy and ethereal image of an Asian woman, but these covers are some of Telepath's most vibrant. They incorporate some of the brighter colors displayed on VAPERROR's albums, and it's yet another display of how these two artistic styles that you'd think would be incompatible come together on this project. Anyways, on to the music. Beyond Love is 9 tracks long and an hour and 17 minutes. I usually have a pretty high tolerance for longer albums, especially from Telepath, but I do think that this one is a bit bloated. A lot of its songs are sampled from VAPERROR's most recent album when this was released, called Polychromatic Compiler. I'm not going to list what ones they are, because I know I'll get some wrong, and there's not a good resource on the internet for this, but I will display one of the songs I'm certain on. The second track, which translates to Sex in the Bounce House, samples the song Grump Club. I'll play them side by side just to show how much Telepath transforms this song's entire mood. Most of the songs on this album sort of sound like the one I played. You've got those bouncier electronic melodies from VAPERROR, combined with that distinct phaser effect and atmosphere that Telepath contributes. The album is split up into an A-side and a B-side though, and they do have slightly different auras. I think the A-side plays it a bit safer, sort of trying to completely define the project's sound. That being said, I do think that's the better half of the album, just for how rich and ethereal the songs are, while still being really catchy. The B-side is slightly more experimental, though it's sort of hard to define in what ways it differs from the A-side. I think the songs are a lot more sparse, which I'm not a huge fan of, and the drums are noticeably different. The grooves are still similar, but the songs are less melodic and more percussive. They do have more complex structures, although I don't think that always necessarily makes for a better song. It's still an enjoyable part of the album, but I don't put any of the songs from here on as often as those from the first half, especially the first three. It shouldn't be possible to make 3 tracks as good as those in a row. Their next album is called Eternity, and I'll toss its Japanese name up on the screen. It's under half as long as Beyond Love was, at only 37 minutes and 4 tracks. I think this shorter track list and runtime really let them refine and perfect these songs, as this feels a lot more quality over quantity than its predecessor does. It's more similar to the B-side of the last album, as these songs are a lot groovier and instrumentally sparse than its A-side. However, a lot of my complaints about those songs on Beyond Love being underdeveloped are gone here. Melodies are used in great places, and they know when to take a backseat to let the groove carry the track. These songs don't have any awkward moments, and their structures flow incredibly well. I've got to give a specific mention to the opener, whose name translates to joining. It's the best song that came from this project, and I could argue that's the best song either of its members ever made. It's 10 minutes absolutely blazed by, driven by an incredible groove. I need to show you this because it's so good. The other songs, while not quite as incredible as Joining, are very good. They're all fairly watery and fall into similar grooves as Joining does, making their relatively long runtimes fly by. This thing isn't super short, especially when compared to a lot of VAPERROR's solo stuff, but does pass by pretty quickly. It does technically have an A-side and a B-side, but there's not really a difference between them sonically like there was on Beyond Love. Plus, there are only 2 songs apiece, so who cares? And that's Televape's whole discography. It's a short one, under 2 hours and 15 songs. I hope we'll get another album from these two, but it's up in the air at this point. The 2 they did release came out in 2015 and 2016, so it's been almost 5 years since we've gotten any new music from this group. They're still both making music though. VAPERROR released an excellent album last year that was one of my favorites, and Telepath is still releasing albums, although nowhere near as frequently as he was in the mid-2010s. But there is a beacon of hope. The footage that I've been using is from a live performance they did at 100% Electronicon in late 2019, so the group is still technically active. Hopefully we end up hearing more from these guys in the future. All in all, Televape has one of the most interesting discographies in all of Vaporwave. It's a meeting of 2 artists that have no right to work as well together as they do, and their 2 albums really sound like nothing else I've heard. If you haven't checked out any of these guys' music, I'll put the link to the Bandcamp pages for the 2 albums in the descriptions. Anyways, that's all I've got. Still not good at writing outros.